You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're ready, staff?
Yes, sir.
All right. The county commission is still in session. Mayor Trentalis, if
Is
you
now
would please
unmuted.
call.
Your line is now muted. Please unmute my line.
The county commission is still in session.
Your
Mayor
line
Trentalis.
is now unmuted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The county commission is still in session. Mayor Trentalis, if you would please call the city commission to order.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale is now in order to, I just want to call attendance. Vice Mayor Steve Glassman, are you here? Just wave your hand.
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Ben Sorensen,
Here. Thank you.
Commissioner Heather Moritas,
Here.
and Commissioner Robert McKenzie. I see Robert's here, so,
I'm here.
okay, great. So we have complete attendance.
Okay, thank you. I call to order the Unified Direct Procurement Authority meeting for the Joint Government Center campus. It is now 12:42 p.m. on October 20, 2020. I am Broward County Mayor Dale Holness, Chair of the Unified Direct Procurement Authority. We have a quorum present from the County Commission. Mayor Trentalis, is there a quorum present from the city?
There is a quorum from the city.
Previously, the city of Fort Lauderdale and Broward County each waived its respective procurement code and designated itself part of the Unified Direct Procurement Authority, UDPA, for the Joint Governmental Center campus. Those actions were in accordance with the interlocal agreement executed between the city of Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. On December 10, 2019, the UDPA approved a contract with Ziskovich, Inc. for planning, programming, and design criteria services for the project. We meet today as the UDPA to consider acceptance of the design criteria package, DCP, developed by Ziskovich. All UDPA members must be free of conflicts of interest as provided by Part 3, Chapter 112 Florida statutes, as amended, and Section 1-9 of the Broward County Code of Ordinance as amended. I understand there's no one from the public that's on. There's a presentation for the design criteria package by Alan Cohen. Presentation of project delivery methods. Assistant County Administrator Alan Cohen, joined by City Manager Chris Lagerblum and DCP Consultant Bernard Ziskovich and Grace Perdono, will present the design criteria package, which you all previously received. Immediately afterwards, they will be joined by financial advisor Wendell Gartner from Public Resources Advisory Group and Broward County CFO George Tablak to make a presentation of different project delivery methods. We'll have questions, answers, and discussions afterward. But we won't be voting on a delivery method today. Representatives from the county attorney's office, the city attorney's office, county and staff and city staff, and/or consultants are available for answers. Any questions we may have? Yes.
You have said what we will not be voting on today. Is there anything that we will be voting on today, and if so, what is that?
The design package.
Just to approve or disapprove?
To accept.
Yeah.
To accept it.
To accept it. Okay. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and welcome, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and and former mayors and commissioners. Thank you all. both here, senators, representatives, and okay. So we know time is short. We're going to go through a lot of information quickly. Mr. Lagerboom was unable to attend in person. He's part of the Zoom call and available for questions via phone. Ben Rogers, one of the city directors, is here, and he's going to be presenting with me, as is Bernard Ziskovich and Grace Perdomo from Ziskovich Inc. We had an architect-led team that helped to develop our design criteria package, and they will be talking a bit about that. So our agenda for today, we're going to give you a bit of an overview, and then we're going to jump right into the design criteria package, our acronym DCP, and we're going to talk about what it is, why we need one, and then we're going to drill down into some specifics, the allocation of project spaces, the budget that the consultants came up with, some site plan information, and then we're going to talk about next steps in our process, including procurement or delivery method alternatives. So with that, I'd like to invite Bernard up to speak a little bit about process. Bernard.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Alan. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to appear. I was here about a year ago when we were getting hired. When we agreed to the schedule, I have to tell you truthfully, I was not convinced that we could make it. Everyone was in a great hurry to do it, but you have an incredible staff at the county and the city. I want to congratulate everyone for being there by our side through this, and it shows how efficiently things can happen when people put their minds to it. I also would like to compliment our own staff and team for just an incredible effort. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the work that we've done. It's 10 months worth of work for probably one of the biggest projects around at this time. And what we have really tried to do more than anything is to lay out truly the criteria so that no matter which method you ultimately select, those that compete will be able to be judged evenly and fairly according to how they met the criteria. It's also important to understand that this is not a design architecturally, even though we love doing architectural design. This is really about putting together all of the spaces, all of the needs, and all of the efforts that have gone into this to combine what is truly something unique, a county hall, a city hall, a bus intermodal terminal, and even upcoming other master planning efforts that, as everyone here knows, I think are really extremely important. One more thing before I let Alan continue is the consulting team that we have is truly national caliber. When we were competing to win this proposal, we went out of our way to make sure that the security, the net zero issues, the elements of technology, the projections for the future of how people might be working, all of these things have been elements that have come from the list of consulting team that you have on the screen. And they are all first-rate, high-caliber firms, and they are part of our team heading forward to whatever extent you feel that you want them involved. So with that, I would like to say it's been a heavy lift. We have really enjoyed the process of getting to know you. There's nothing like getting into somebody's house to understand who they are, and we've had the privilege of doing that both at the county and the city. And we're very grateful for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard. I understand we're experiencing a little technical difficulty, so we're going to try something a little different. Okay, go ahead.
No, just right here.
Go ahead, you do it.
Click in there, and that should. There you go. Now
There we go.
Now
we're caught up, except that's,
Well, we'll fix it.
okay, great.
So you get what you.
Okay. All right. All right, so Bernard spoke about our team, and we had hundreds of city and county staff involved. I want to particularly point out three people, two of whom are with us: Ariadne Musara, our Director of Construction Management, and Rob Dennis, and Mike Rittis, who is not here today. Yes. Yes, we are working on that right now, and do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't match, and the guys in the back will back it up one, and we should be okay. What you see on your screens is separate from what the home audience is seeing. So, Mike, you're seeing to that now? Thank you. All right. So, Ben, if you want to join me up here. Thank you.
We're good on the site?
And now we are good. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ben Rogers, City of Fort Lauderdale.
Should we look here or on
All
there?
right.
So we follow.
You guys need to back up, back there, please. Go backwards.
What kind of operation you got?
I know. Keep going. There you go. Now we're there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So the proposed site is located at 101 Northwest First Avenue, which is bound by Broward Boulevard, Brickell Avenue, and Northwest Second Street. And it consists of approximately 3 acres in the downtown Rack City Center. And it's located in extreme proximity to other city, county, state, and federal properties. And the building itself will be a Class A building, and it's going to be broken down into kind of 4 distinct character areas: the office tower, the parking garage, both of which the city and county will share, and then the transportation terminal and a transportation administration office, which would be under the county use. The building, like I said, will be a Class A office building, and it's going to include a lot of amenities that are modern and futuristic, things that we don't have in some of our buildings today. We went through and identified priorities from elected officials, from staff, and from the public, and came up with the list of amenities there. One, for example, the Child Care Center would host up to 120 children from ages 0 to 5 years old.
So Mr. Ziskovich touched on some of these next 2 slides. So it's important, again, to reiterate that the drawings that you see and will be seeing are illustrative only. They are not being proposed in any way. We're simply here to demonstrate that everything that we researched and determined that we needed could fit in a building on the designated site. And we have, in fact, proven the concept, proof of concept, that we can move forward with this development on the site that we selected. The consultants looked at what we do and how we do it to determine the kind of spaces we need and how much of that space we need. And then those findings were integrated with a host of technical specifications as well as the drawings and whatnot to come up with the full package. And by the way, sitting in front of me is the full printed design criteria package. Many of you received this wonderful little flash drive with everything on it and a couple of the books. These large binders are the appendices, over 1,000 pages of information. Just a tremendous amount of work that went into this to come up with the design criteria package before you. We now have a baseline for whomever develops the JGCC, regardless of how you choose to move forward. And what's important to know is these specifications establish standards. The developer that you choose will have the flexibility to innovate as long as whatever new idea that they propose meets or exceeds the standards established in the specifications in this document. We now have the basis for an apples-to-apples comparison, and it provides a clear foundation for negotiations down the road with the chosen developer.
And in this DCP, we focus on a lot of the infrastructure of the building, so the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing. But we took it a first step and looked into net zero and into resiliency and technology and how safety will work and the needs for common space and movement within the building. So
to drill down, looking at sustainability and resiliency, You authorized previously us pursuing a net zero building. The specifications for that are in this DCP. We're also pursuing a LEED Platinum certification and believe that we can make it. And there is a whole host of characteristics built into the standards to ensure that. There's also another rating system that looks at how a building impacts the health and well-being of the people that work in the building. That system is called WELL Building. And the WELL Building standards are also in our specifications as well. So we have made a commitment to provide a high-quality, healthy workplace for our employees to work in and for the public to visit. Resiliency, we spent a lot of time on that, and in one of the renderings we'll be showing you, we'll give you an example of how that played out in the design.
And then, once again, having a building of the future, we looked into all the specialized systems and what needed to be in there, and we took a look at how the chambers would be separate in office areas from ventilation perspective and how things are maintained building-wide. And all of these systems, like we said, are going to be state-of-the-art and really provide a more efficient operation than current state. In technology and security, from a security perspective, once again, we looked at all the different angles, and this plan actually has 2 security checkpoints, one at the front door and then one also into the chambers. And then it has technology improvements and upgrades that would allow for an operational efficiencies, deal with life safety, and just the public well-being.
Of note, by the way, the city has its own, the city has an EOC and a data center that will be in the new building. The county, as the board knows, has a standalone EOC implantation, and we also have a data center elsewhere. But the city components are here on that list. We also looked at COVID and other healthcare related considerations to ensure that we were designing the building again in a way that had a positive impact on the environment for employees. So not only did we look at workstations themselves and how those are set up to provide for a safer, healthier environment, but we also are leveraging technology. For example, we're integrating a lot more touchless systems to reduce contact points throughout the building. Again, all baked into the standards that we have.
And so this illustration depicts the building square footage and the needs. And as you can see, as I referenced earlier, there's 4 distinct areas. You have the light blue, which is the office tower, the gray is the parking garage, light green being the transportation terminal, and the purple being the transportation administration. And Alan's going to break down the office space.
Thank you, Ben. So for the office space, and I want to emphasize this is, again, all conceptual. This is our make-believe building. Can we all fit in it? We have the orange areas denote common areas. The yellow denotes city. The white denotes future expansion space. And the bluish gray purple, whatever you want to call it, is county space. You'll notice there is a city floor up top that's designed for the city commission and administration to have one of the 2 top floors of the building alongside the county board and county administration as well.
And all finishes.
Office space that the city and the county occupy. You take that as a sum total and then divide in the city share or the county share, and what you come up with is the proportionality for the project. So the city accounts for 43% of the identified office space in the building, and the county accounts for 57%. This is important because that proportionality is now going to be applied moving forward to the cost sharing of the project. We had talked about early on, if we're going to be a larger tenant and have a larger footprint, we would pay a larger share of the cost of the building. And these are now the proportions of our 2 uses. And, we expected it to be a little different, but there was more consolidation on the city side, which raised that number up. And I think the city is going to stop paying rent in other locations as a result, which seemed like a really smart thing for them to do.
Alan? 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 Can I ask you a question? So I just want to ask you one question, Alan. So basically, based on this rendering, they've given 10%, approximately 10% of extra floors for growth for both the county and city combined. There's about 10% that, is that what you're doing?
That is roughly, yes. And that was based on actual projections that both the city and the county did looking forward decades, speaking with our different departments and with administration to determine what we thought our growth was going to be and what our head count was going to look like decades from now.
For both the city and the county, do you
Yes.
think for decades you only need 10% growth? Is that?
No, what we were attempting to do in this building is consolidate those back of the house activities for the county. So where our general growth would be is out in the rest of the community. So what we see in that building with technology and other changes we expect down the road, we just don't see ourselves growing that large. Our services will be out in the rest of the community, and so that's where we expect our growth to occur. That's correct. So if you know, we attempted during the budget process to give you an idea of the type of buildings that we have currently and what we're looking to build going forward, like our courthouses and just human services and things like that. So we take those services to the community. So that's where we see the lion's share of our growth occurring. But here, the home of the board, and a lot of our back of the house activities probably won't grow nearly at the rate that our direct services would grow.
There's convenience to the public for those interface that they have, that they don't have to travel everyone down here to the centralized location.
That's correct.
But you'll have those services spread out to where it's convenient for
That's
them
correct.
to be able to interface with us. Commissioner Ryan.
Looking at the, I guess, the footprint or the site plan, I think it's somewhat incomplete. I know that in earlier discussions, that Mayor Trantellis had indicated that he was looking for some green space, some type of perhaps a pocket park or a plaza of some nature. Is that what's being suggested in the western portion? Maybe Mr. Siskovich can come up and speak to that. It's not on your site, but would it be immediately to the east of perhaps the bus intermodal facility? Is that the idea?
Commissioner, I'm going to jump ahead a few slides to show you, if you want to speak to that.
Yes.
The site is, as you know, the existing bus terminal site, and we have a tremendous amount of program on the site. So the challenge has been, how do we create green space and open space? And how do we create a healthy environment and also a conducive, open government sense of the building? And frankly, it's been very challenging to find ground level open space because, as you could readily imagine, it would be very difficult to fulfill the program if we reduce the site anymore. So the solution is we have a large deck that you can see roughly at the podium level, which is all outdoors. The transportation piece that sits on top of that deck is lifted. So we have actually almost 2 acres of available circulation open space at the deck level. And that was our way of compensating for the fact that the site is just frankly not large enough to handle all of this program as designed, and also an open to the sky ground level park.
All right, so you don't see any ground level green space. What you have to the east, it looks like it's to the northeast, where you show
Well,
some
we have
scattered
some, right.
trees. That's not part of this particular footprint?
I took your question to mean more, according to what I think Mayor Trantalis was looking for, was more of a park type setting, an open setting. What we have setbacks and landscaping and all the things that would be appropriate around a downtown building. But I would not be saying the truth if I said it was open space usable as a park. That is on the upper level deck at the
Well,
podium.
maybe instead of park, maybe a plaza of
Yeah,
some
well, we
sort,
have an entry plaza on the corner. But again, I took your question to mean something more expansive.
Well, if it's in the nature of a park, then I know some of the concerns that had been voiced, Mayor, by your predecessors on the Fort Lauderdale Commission was whether it would be a magnet for, you know, the
homeless
homeless
people?
population, or whether it would be something, I think not, because I think when you have this type of number of persons that are in business, that are, you know, out going back and forth, that it doesn't lend itself to that, but I was in favor of your idea. Maybe you might, at this point, want to comment on what you envisioned.
Well, I think what they're proposing today is just to submit their design criteria package for the office space and the meeting space and space for employees. I don't think it's intended to go beyond that. I do not want to let go of that desire to have a plaza, to have a public plaza associated with this development. And that's probably another conversation that we would need to have as a joint body if we wanted to acquire other property that's adjacent to it. Based on the needs assessment that has been presented to Mr. Zukovich, you know, to have the joint government center along with a bus station kind of eats up the whole site. And I don't see how it could physically accommodate an open plaza, except if we went up. If we carved out an area that, see, this is just one big rectangle. And I guess this is just a massing study anyway. This is not a design study, because we're not there yet. But as we move forward in a design study, I would like to think that there is a possibility that we could carve out an area that would create an open plaza, because I think that's to me part and parcel with government property and government and a government center like this. So, and whether it's on the site or whether it is across the street, I know FEC owns a parcel across the street from the proposed bus station. So there are all kinds of opportunities, but you're right, Commissioner, I don't want to let go of that. I think it's a necessity, and we should, as we move forward in the design aspect of it, that should be incorporated.
Well, we recognize the limited purposes that we have here is to approve the design criteria package, but I wanted to make sure that comment was on the record,
Right.
because you don't want to go forward and then, you know, several months later say, well, now it's going to be more difficult for us to try to integrate that concept back into this as we move forward. So just, I wanted to make sure that your comments had support
Right.
from some of us commissioners.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Vice Mayor Geller.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Ryan was asking about. I've seen this entire presentation before with Mr. Cohen. I had heard that I think it was the Broward Workshop or Alliance or one of those interchangeable business groups that there's so many of, was discussing the one-stop center, one-stop permitting, that building that is right across from Fort Lauderdale City Hall. Where is that in reference to this? Has there been discussion on including that property as potentially the green site that you were looking for on this one?
Well, it's further up. It's not contiguous.
They're not contiguous.
They're not contiguous. There is an open parcel that is contiguous, but that's owned by FEC. But but we would want the community, the neighborhood, the city would want to have an open space in this area. It doesn't have to be the one-stop shop site per se. If we swap the one-stop shop for another open space, I think that would satisfy the needs of our community. But unfortunately, Steve, it's just not contiguous, so it's not as easy.
I understand. I didn't realize. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Continue, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, so I think everyone understands, but just once again, these are conceptual site plans for illustrative purposes for proof of concept. This one just shows the first floor and how the tower and the terminal can coexist on the same footprint. This one is an illustration of the second floor, which outlines the two chambers, some back of house chamber space, a security area, and then a common multifunctional space. So that way, if there are joint meetings or there are meetings going on simultaneously, that there's enough movement area on the second floor.
Okay. So this is an illustrative rendering from the corner of Broward and Brickell. Broward's to your left. You can see the train crossing at grade there. And then Brickell's on your right. If you look along the side of the building, you'll see a ramp that's going up, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily. In the lobby right there in the corner, you see escalators in front. Those are designed to go up to the chamber level. And there's a curved wall there on the left-hand side behind the front facade. Those are the county chambers there. Now, this is moving up Brickell, and this is showing you what a front entrance could look like. There is an information desk straight ahead to the back, and there is security to the left. The most important component of this illustration, though, is to show you that the specifications call for the building to be 4 feet higher than grade. That is for resiliency purposes. As sea level rises and we have localized flooding from heavier rain events, you might get your feet wet walking to the building, but the building itself will be able to function. We're not going to be flooding in the lobby of the building or any of our services throughout. These are simply some renderings that we already showed you. Ben, I'm just going to run with it. So this is from a northeast perspective and going around 180. This is from a southwest perspective. So this is Broward on your right and the railroad tracks moving up. For illustrative purposes only, there is a bridge there with Broward Boulevard going underneath. And there's no position taken in this design criteria package about the future of what might happen along those bright line tracks. No, it's Broward's to your right where the cars are, and that's the train track on the left. That's illustrative of an aesthetically pleasing bridge covering. Yes. All right, so next step.
I can't hear if someone's asking questions from the dais, I can't hear them.
Okay, Mayor, do you know how to turn your mic on? It's okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you very much for pointing that out. All right, so next steps. We're asking you to accept the design criteria package today. The interlocal agreement that we have between the city and the county took us this far. We now need to work together to amend it, to take us along the rest of the path. So we immediately need to get started with our attorney friends on working on the interlocal agreement. And by the way, hats off to Mike Kerr and Jeff Zanowski, who are both here, who have been integral to this project in the county attorney's office. We also need to continue work on the development of a solicitation. Regardless of the procurement method or the delivery method that you choose, most of the bullet items on this list in front of you need to be developed for that future solicitation, with a couple of exceptions. So staff has already started working on that, city and county staff together. We're going to continue working on that between now and the next UDPA meeting, so that we are positioned to move forward expeditiously if that is the choice of this body. Regarding procurement or delivery method, we presented to all of you a spreadsheet that had 4 different basic alternatives on it: design bid build, P3 hybrid, P3 being public-private partnership, and then a P3, and looking at a solicited versus an unsolicited alternative as well. I'm going to switch our share here now, and let's see if we can do this expeditiously. And Voila, technology actually worked.
Mr. Cohen, before you go there,
Yes,
I have a question.
okay?
You showed us the breakdown in terms of the allocation of space. Are we then intending to allocate cost based on the allocation of space, or are we going to look at other items that are required by each party?
So there are the space that is required by each party is already integrated into their proportionate share of the building. There are other common areas like cafeteria, meeting rooms, the child care center. Those are all shared spaces, and those would then be treated on a proportional basis based on the office and specific use proportionality. Did that answer your question, sir?
Not really.
Okay.
I get that. That's what we're looking at. But if one of us require additional equipment, for example, we have a emergency management center away, they would require one. If there's additional equipment or cost pertaining to building that facility.
Okay, I understand what you're
data
saying.
storage that they might require, we might require.
These are-
Is there a different allocation for those costs?
Yes, so these are some of the details that we have to work out in a future agreement, but to drill down a little and get specific to your question, the overall construction would be proportional, but then the finish or build-out, as it's called, would be more specific to the individual partners based on the finishes that they choose. The city and the county might go with a very different look within their office footprint. And that would be up to the individual entities to decide what they want to spend, and they would be responsible for those costs.
Thank you.
Mayor and Alan?
Yes,
Steve Glassman?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, thank you. I did have a question before we move on the proposal for cost. I look at $962,743,152 divided by a total office building space of 901 roughly gross square feet. That comes to about $1,000 a square foot. Now, I'm a layperson when it comes to construction, but is that typical? That seems high to me, $1,000 a square foot. Can you elaborate on that, Alan?
Yes, I'd be happy to. It should seem high because it is, and because the 962 million includes elements on that slide that are not specific to the office building. That 962 million includes the parking garage, the transit terminal, and the offices for the Broward County Transportation Department. So the very first number, the 700 and some odd million, is the number that you would be looking at. And that number, and as I said, it's a very conservative number, includes all costs. It includes all soft costs, all build-out and finishing work, as well as the actual construction of the facility itself.
So that brings it down to about $800 a square foot roughly, but still, isn't that extremely high?
For a full finish of everything that you want in the building, it's actually not.
It's not.
Well, I'm going to say it's, as I said, it's a conservative estimate, and it's on the higher side, but it's within an expected range.
So it's a conservative estimate, but conservative in the sense that it's much higher than it might be. That's conservative? Is that the conservative you're looking at, or am I looking at conservative in the wrong way?
Well, the bottom line, Commissioner, is that when we get to the development stage and selecting development teams and then actually designing the building, we'll get actual real costs for this project. This is based on, some working assumptions and there's some guesstimating in this. That's why they are conservative projections. The closer we get to designing, the closer we're going to get to an actual cost.
The other thing that you may want to point out. The other thing you may want to point out is there are some amenities that we are contemplating in the building up front that would have a positive impact on the O&M costs. So when you're looking at getting to net zero and a series of other things to make the building overall efficient, then you would include that into the calculation of what that's cost.
And Mr. Ziskovich also pointed out to me that he built in an awful lot of contingencies into these numbers. So there's a lot of padding in them. But Ms. Henry's point is very important, is that we committed to spending a little extra money, which is going to save us a lot more money in the long run in our operating costs for this facility.
And conservative
Okay,
for you.
thank you very much.
Conservative for you means it's more likely to be less than it is likely to be more.
Yes.
Commissioner Udi.
Following on a comment that the mayor had asked, when we look at the design criteria package and with the Emergency Operations Center for the city of Fort Lauderdale, was there any thought or was there space parameters to combine the county's EOC there? So we would build one that would be used by both the county and the city, or ours may be too big?
The space that we would require for an EOC would be tremendously costly to try to squeeze it on that site. We need a lot of space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cohen.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to my esteemed colleague, George Tablak, our CFO. And on the phone, we have Wendell Gertner. He's with Public Resources Advisory Group, acronym is PRAG. They're one of our financial advisors, and George will tell you a little bit about Wendell. And Wendell is going to run you through this spreadsheet, and I'll be his wingman and move it as needed.
Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, Commissioners. PRAG is one of our 4 financial advisors within the county's library of FAs. A little bit about them: they handle quite a few sophisticated credits across the country, including New York City and Los Angeles, to give you an idea of the scope. I believe they're the second largest financial advisor in the country for municipal type debt structures. So without further ado, and to keep things moving along, Wendell, if you would like to go over the spreadsheet, please.
Thank you, George. As George said, my name is Wendell Gertner. I'm a Senior Managing Director with Public Resource Advisory Group. We are one of the county financial advisors. My office is located at 150 2nd Avenue North in St. Petersburg. As you consider moving forward to accept and then implement the design criteria package, you got a spectrum of procurement options available to manage that implementation. You'll see 4 options as examples in the spreadsheet. And although there are a number of considerations as to the delivery option, it really differs primarily in who's responsible for and who takes the risk associated with each of the tasks, whether it be design, construction, finance, operations. The first project delivery option on the spreadsheet is historically the most common process, the design, bid, build, in which the government contracts for each function separately and maintains control over the entire development and operating life cycle. The government maintains control, but the procurement process generally takes longer since each step is handled separately. And this is the process that has historically been used for general construction projects. In the next option, design build, the design and construction tasks are provided by a single entity, the design builder. This option can save time, and it can also reduce change orders and finger pointing between the architect and the builder. And this option has historically been used for larger or more time-sensitive projects. As you move further across the spectrum, the private side takes on more responsibility and more risk. The third column can be thought of as a hybrid P3. And in this case, the private side could provide, in addition to the design build, the construction financing to minimize construction risk, or they could even be responsible for operations and maintenance of the facility. For all of the first 3, the government provides the permanent financing due to your ability to access low-cost tax-exempt debt. The option on the far right is a full privatization. And in that case, the private side provides all of the design, construction, long-term financing, operations, and maintenance responsibilities. And with this structure, the government's historically traded a somewhat higher cost of capital for reduced revenue risk and reduced operating risk. Historically, this structure has been most commonly used for revenue-producing projects such as bridges or toll roads. If you were to decide to proceed with the project as envisioned in the DCP under the traditional design, bid, build process, the next step would typically be to hand the DCP to an architect and have them design the building, and then you bid out that design to a contractor. If the city and the county, however, think there might be benefits to greater involvement from the private sector in the development or the operations, the next step is typically to initiate some form of value for money analysis and try to quantify the costs associated with each and the benefit of each of the various options to this particular project. Historically, for these types of projects, a competitive solicitation process is used in which the first stage after you have your needs assessment or your DCP is to you shortlist based on qualifications. And then you wind up with a smaller pre-qualified group that you invite to propose on the specifics of the project. Historically, on the procurement side, we see unsolicited proposals involved in projects that relate to something the government had not been considering or necessarily planning for. For projects the government's already planning to do, the solicited procurement process can allow the government to determine its needs, as you're doing today, and then use a two-step competitive process to identify the best proposal that meets those needs. What makes this project a little different and unique from many government projects is not just the office, the transit, and some of the other real estate that's being freed up, but both from a development and an operation perspective, you have joint ownership and joint use aspect. And given that piece of it, a deeper analysis of project delivery options kind of beyond the standard for this particular project, it could be beneficial. And moving towards, as you develop the other milestones, looking at some level of analysis of each of these to this particular project could add some real value as you look at a long-term development and operation of a large project. There's a lot of information on the spreadsheet. I know we're short of time. I didn't want to cover every one, but wanted to give kind of an overview of the options and what we see the differences and how they're being used. George and Alan and I are happy to address any questions now or at any point in the future.
Vice Mayor Gallo.
Thank you. Again, you and I and Alan have gone over this at great length, but one of the questions I have then is based on everything that we've seen, including the length of the proposals, and this is just my personal view, I don't think that it necessarily makes sense for us to be looking at a design bid build, whether we'd be looking at design build finance, design build operate maintain, design build finance operate maintain. Those all, I mean, I'm prepared to still consider those. When I look at the time frame on 8 years to do a design bid build and combine that with the fact that this project is so large that I would make a fortune by betting that there will be substantial finger pointing between the architect and the GC. I mean, we know that that will occur. At some point in time, how would we decide to say that while we're prepared to consider these others, that design bid build is not appropriate for a project of this complexity?
First, technically, I'm going to stop share a moment so that you can see your colleagues, Mayor, and call on them as needed. The question that you're asking is one that this body would need to come to terms with and answer. There are pros and cons to each one of these approaches, and we are not here recommending any one of them. We're here to talk about the pros and cons and to discuss them in more detail with you. And we just wanted to give you that information today. There's no expectation of a decision today. So we wanted to start the conversation, so to speak.
Thank you. Well, just to respond, if I would ask then, or either the attorneys or the mayors, if they could, just give us a way, because again, I could argue for design build, I could argue for DBF, DBOM, DBFOM. As an attorney, I don't think I can make a straight face argument for straight DBB, and I'm hoping at some point in the near future, we can at least start to narrow the options available to us, and I'm done now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So this would be coming back to us for a separate vote at a separate time as to what we do with this. This is just to open the conversation at this point in time as to what we could be looking at in the future. So I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of time debating on these different delivery mechanisms, because that's not really what we're here to try to accomplish. And considering that we have some very lengthy item coming up, and I know the city commission has a meeting today also, Mayor Trentalis.
It started 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so
May I just make one comment?
Go ahead,
Mayor?
please.
Our commission has discussed this, although these numbers and all of this stuff is very fresh to us also. So I know you've worked with all of us at our commission, so we really, really appreciate that, Alan. I just want you to know that the sentiment that has been expressed by my commission is expediency. We have term limits, and and we would like to see this completed before we run out of our term limits. So, so whatever the most, and we've had very good success with unsolicited proposals. As you know, in our city, we built a beautiful soccer stadium, which was a completely unsolicited proposal, and they built it, and it was done, okay, and it's gorgeous. So there are two opposite ways to look at this. So somewhere in that spectrum is where I feel we will end up. But I just want you to know that the sentiment of my commission has always been to find the most expedient way of moving forward.
All right, thank you. And if I may, to really get to where the debate is a little limited here on this item, because we're talking about an item that we have to bring back.
Yes.
What is our timeline for us to bring that portion of it? Do we have any time frame?
We have not established a next meeting yet. Our meetings diverge in their schedule for at least next month.
But once we accept this, then we can consider that.
Correct.
The option.
And as I pointed out, Mayor, we have to amend the ILA before this board can take any action.
So the next item is going to be the ILA that we need to amend.
The ILA.
And then we look at the delivery mechanism. Right. Okay. I got three of you on from my side. And it sounds as if we have someone else from the commission side. So let me just run through my commissioners. Commissioner Glassman, they've been waiting for a little while. Commissioner Bogan, Ryan Denfer.
Okay, I'm not going to address this because this is for another meeting. We're here to approve, as the mayor said, the design package. I'm going to just say, I'm hoping, George, that if we're going to be given advice by an outside consultant, I want one that is a pro unsolicited bid, and so the person we're using now works for a company that makes money if we issue bonds. Okay? I'm not saying that his advice is going to be slanted in any way, but I'm going to say that, from our conversation, that's, so that's fine, and I think we should have them. I'll say it again, I think we should have them. But I want then somebody on the other side that is an advisor who does, who advises on P3s, unsolicited, so we can hear both, so we just get that. I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable. I'm not, whoever you use, I have the highest integrity of you. So whoever you use, I respect and want, but everybody comes from a different background in any profession. And so I'm hoping that when we do listen to our options, we have a consultant that comes from both sides. That's it.
So just to make sure the record is clear, our FAs act as a fiduciary to the legal entity. And with a library of 4 of them, you have the availability of any of those 4 FAs to advise you on the transaction. So it's not necessarily true.
Well, he's the one that keeps showing up. He was on our telephone call, and he's here today.
Well-
So if we have 4, that's great. I just want the other side to be brought, invited. I don't do the inviting. I assume you do. So I would just like the other side to be coming here as well.
Understood. All we wanted to do, Commissioner, is give you a person with vast experience for 19 years in P3s to give you some perspective.
Again, I'm holding up in the highest integrity. I'm not suggesting. I just want somebody that just is on the flip side. I'd feel more comfortable.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, followed by Commissioner Furr.
I'm sensitive to the timeframes also, but this project delivery system is really a discussion of the finance components. And I believe our selection between these 4 alternatives should be based on the unique factors of this project and the 2 governmental entities that are participating. Now, we have a very high-quality credit rating, both of the county and the city. That's something certainly to be factored into what finance selection process we select. And obviously, we're going to talk about this in greater detail. But I hope that as you do your analysis, Mr. Tablack, as our finance expert, and rely upon those consultants, which we have asked you to do, that you will look at that. The very last proposal was one where it appeared that it would be best for an entity that may not be able to have this level of financing and a project that may be a revenue-producing entity or infrastructure. So that doesn't fit into what we're talking about. And I don't have a problem with a P3 if that helps us, but I don't want to just select it just because it's, what some of the developers may favor. It's what's going to be best for the taxpayers, what's going to be best for the delivery system, cost effectiveness, cost of money, and a quality product.
Thank you. Let me Commissioner Furr, before I go to you, Commissioner Rich and anyone else, it appears as if we should be through with this item by about 2 o'clock. This is about 20 minutes from here. If we're not done, if we get done earlier, we'll probably take a break because or no taker needs to have that. And then we will come back to the school board item. So if someone can alert members of the school board that we're looking at this point in time at about 2 o'clock or shortly thereafter for us to deal with that item, we'll have about a half an hour to deal with it when we come back. Commissioner Furr, go ahead. And then we'll go to Commissioner Glassman, Vice Mayor Glassman, Mayor Trentalis. Okay, just one moment. Commissioner Furr, and then we'll go to your side.
No, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I want to compliment Bernard Siskovich and his associates. There's a tremendous piece of work in a very short amount of time. Thank you. Very voluminous, very hard to get through all this. Some dry stuff in there. But I will say, when I look at this, and I understand Mayor Trentalis wanting, searching for expediency on this, my tendency would be to say, there are some things here that we really need to be looking at. And I'm really thinking primarily along the transportation issue. This is the epicenter of our transportation network. We're looking at Brightline coming through here, and we have to decide, and I'm throwing the ball your way, Mayor. We have to decide whether or not we're doing a tunnel or a bridge. And because that is going to determine design elements by far. How does that integrate into the terminal? How does that integrate into the parking garage? How do you get in from off the train, go right into the buildings? Those things are essential. But the other part of that is when I look at where all the different pieces of property that are around this, that are state-owned, county-owned, federally owned, city-owned, how does that work into the whole situation? You were talking about trying to back it up. Okay, which property, who owns that property behind? Well, I think it's Brightline, if I'm not mistaken. So there's possibilities there. There's numerous possibilities of moving things around to make sure that it works. We need to know what we're doing on Broward Boulevard and what kind of a transportation system we're having there. Whether or not we're doing rail, are we doing elevated, or what are we doing? And that has to be decided before we do this. Otherwise, we're going to be going backwards. We have some chronological steps here, and I am begging us to think that way. I understand you want to get it done quick. I think we all do. But those decisions have got to be made. And, and I think this week or either next week, Miami-Dade County is taking a major vote on Brightline. We have already issued letters to Brightline to, look at what's going to happen here with the airport, connections there, how's it coming into the city. And for your city's sake, I think it begs for a master plan around this area. I really think it does. You have a once in a lifetime opportunity to decide how the city's going to look in this whole area, and it's about to blossom like nobody's business. I mean, the potential is amazing.
I could not agree with you more. Thank you for bringing it up, and just include us in the conversation. That's all I say.
Well, I think you guys obviously have major decisions to make with regard to what we're going to do transportation-wise.
Right.
I mean, I think the big question is tunnel or bridge.
Correct.
We got to make that decision.
Correct.
And some of the finances may make those for us, regardless of what we want, but that has to be figured out. And then we have to decide what we're doing on Broward Boulevard. So I'm not going to reiterate, but I really do think that we should be thinking master plan. And I think that would, and not drag it out forever, but just to think real quickly, what are all the other pieces? What are the jigsaw part? What do we have? What should we be considering? What other options do we have? Because right across from this, we own the property, right? Which gives us numerous opportunities for other things. So that's my take on this. Okay. And I don't know what your fellow commissioners think, but if I were a city commissioner, I'd say, I want to see the whole thing before. Thanks.
Mayor Trentalis, I think Vice Mayor Glassman was.
Vice Mayor Glassman, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, mayors. Just a question, because Mayor Trentalis actually mentioned the Inner Miami project that we did. And that one was sort of a phased-in approach. That was almost that we didn't bite off everything at one time. We had an interim agreement, and then we sort of phased in and went along. We didn't just do everything all at once. Is that even possible here, that we look at almost a progressive P3 approach here, as opposed to just what we're looking here at the delivery options that have been presented to us? I'm just thinking that, if it's maybe phased, again, a progressive approach where we take it step by step. Is that even a possibility? Where we had, for instance, with Beckham, we had an interim agreement, and then we just built upon that. Is that even a possible approach here?
I think that's what Mr. Cohen was referring to earlier about modifying the ILA as we go forward. That's going to be part of it, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have our discussion. I know our commission is going to have some questions and some points of view that need to be addressed. So when we reconvene amongst ourselves, we can have a more detailed discussion about what we're hearing today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner
Mayor
Udine,
Trentalis.
followed by Commissioner Fisher.
Just one question. Now that and I think they did a great job with the design criteria, so very well done. Will we be getting a presentation at some point in the future from AECom, who put together the unsolicited bid? I mean, if they can comply with the design criteria package, will we hear from them as well?
You should.
I'm asking our county attorney's office to respond to this. Mike Kerr is coming forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. The answer to that is yes, you can. In fact, I was contacted to see if that would be a potential possibility by representatives from AECom, but it's up to the UDPA.
Okay.
Just as one person, I mean, at some point, I'd like to see a presentation by them. They put a lot of preliminary work into it. It would be good to see what they've come up with as far as.
They and
designs.
others.
Yeah, and maybe we ought to, after we modify or agreement, look at that. Should be that be after that or before, attorney?
It can be at the pleasure of the UDPA. It can
Okay, all
either
right.
be before or after, because it's just a presentation.
Okay, all right.
If everyone's already gone, I'd make a motion to accept the design criteria package.
All right, no, Commissioner Fisher wanted to speak first.
No, that's right. I'll second that motion. But just want to go back to what Mayor Trentella said, and I understand Commissioner's first concerns, but let's get aggressive on this timeline, Alan, if we can. Let's get the ILA done quickly. Let's get the next steps quickly done so that we can move this project along. I know government's very hard to get together here, but let's be aggressive on it, and let's don't waste a lot of time. And I know we got holidays coming up, so I just ask the commissions on both sides to be aggressive on the timeline. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay. So if there are no further questions of the UDPF staff, we're now going to consider motion. In order for this item to move forward, there must be a minimum of 5 affirmative votes from the county commission and 3 affirmative votes from the city commission. First, as to the county, is there a motion to accept the design criteria package for the joint governmental center campus, authorize county and city staff to work with Ziskovich Inc. to make non-material changes to the DCP and direct county and city staff to incorporate the DCP into any solicitation documents for the JGCC and bring them back to the UDPA. We had a motion and we had a second. A motion by Commissioner Udine and a second by Commissioner Fisher for that. Now, let's go on the city side.
Well, let's vote on the county.
Yeah, let's go on the county side. Like, from the county, those in favor vote by saying aye.
Actually,
Aye.
I wanted discussion for a second.
I'm sorry, you wanted to say some more? I'm sorry, we were premature in
right
taking
into
that
it, sorry.
vote.
I guess
I didn't realize you wanted to speak.
Okay, that's all right. My only question is, does this prohibit doing a master plan, or can we look at this and try to incorporate it? I guess I'm asking county administrator.
No, it does.
This can be independent of that, and
Yes,
then we
it could.
can.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you.
So that didn't interfere with, we had the motion, we had a second, and let me ask again, those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. It passes 9-0. Mayor
let me-
Trentalis,
okay.
as to the city.
So, City Commission of Fort Lauderdale, you heard the motion and the second. Any further discussion from anybody on the commission?
Mayor, Commissioner Sorensen here.
Yes, sir.
Yep, all in favor of it. I think it would be helpful in the efforts for expediency if we could have city and county staff work together to set up a every other month meeting. In other words, a joint UDPA meeting every other month, put it on the books. If, 2 or 3 weeks before we don't need to meet because there's nothing to cover or address, then cancel the meeting. But I think it'd be good if we had an every other month cadence.
So to set a meeting, that makes a lot of sense because it gives us deadlines against which we would work in order to ensure that we had made progress in the effort. So that makes a lot of sense. Do you agree with that, Ms. Henry? Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from the City Commission? If not, I guess I'll just ask each one of you. Vice Mayor, your vote?
Viceman?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so 100%.
Okay.
It's a good way to start out, Mayor.
Okay, good.
Say
Mayor Dean Trentalis, it's now 1:51.
Yeah, we need to go.
Would you please adjourn the city commission
Okay,
meeting?
so our commission meeting is now adjourned, and we will reconvene in the conference meeting in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
The UDPA meeting is adjourned, although the county commission meeting will continue in this room. We will take a break and come back to our regular meeting at 2 o'clock, so you have 8 minutes.